Right. So today we're going deep on Donald Miller's How to Grow Your Small Business.
Right.
You sent over some really interesting stuff. And this book is fascinating. It uses this airplane analogy for a small business.
Yeah.
And every part has to be working right for the whole thing to really fly.
So true.
So we're going to break down the 6 key parts of Miller's airplane
Okay.
to give you a clear roadmap for your own business. Those are the cockpit, which is leadership,
Right.
the right engine, which is marketing,
Mm-hmm.
left engine is sales,
Okay.
wings are products,
Got it.
body is overhead and operations,
Yeah.
and finally the fuel tanks, which are cash flow.
Makes sense.
So our mission today is to really boil down Miller's insights into these areas.
Yeah, and I think as we were looking at this stuff, it really stood out how interconnected all 6 of these areas are in Miller's mind.
Yeah.
I mean, just like an airplane can't fly with only one wing, a business needs all these components working together.
Absolutely. 100%. So let's start in the cockpit with leadership. Okay.
Miller sees the business owner as the pilot, and it's all about setting that clear course, defining where you want to go.
Yeah.
And he's really big on having a mission statement that is more than just, some nice sounding words. It needs to be a practical guide for your business.
And it's really interesting how he talks about the flight plan filter.
Yeah.
It's about making sure that every decision, everything your team does, is aligned with that mission. Like, are we actually moving in the direction we decided on?
It's about focus.
Yeah, exactly. And it helps your team be so much more effective because they know what the goals are. They don't need you to micromanage them every step of the way.
Yeah.
Imagine if, the pilot was always second-guessing the co-pilot. You wouldn't have a very smooth flight.
No, that would be a disaster.
Total chaos.
All right, so let's move on to the right engine, which is marketing.
Right.
This is how you communicate with the world. Your message. What are you putting out there?
And Miller's a big believer in clarity, which I love. Like, how does your product or service actually make your customer's life better?
Yeah.
If you can't answer that clearly, then you're not going to get very far.
And this is where he brings in his story brand framework. I mean,
Right.
This is kind of his bread and butter.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant. He says you need to position your customer as the hero of the story.
Okay.
Identify their problem really clearly,
Mm-hmm.
and then offer your product as the simple, straightforward solution.
Mm-hmm.
It's about thinking from the customer's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
They want to know how you are going to solve their problems, not just like, here's what my product is.
Yeah, it's giving them that why. Like, why should they care?
Exactly.
All right, so that takes us to the left engine, sales. And this is where the rubber really meets the road.
Yeah,
You got to turn all that marketing attention into actual paying customers,
Right.
revenue.
for sure.
So Miller talks about building a sales process, figuring out who your ideal customer is, and then building trust so you can close those deals. And it's not about being slick or pushy.
No,
It's about genuinely offering something valuable, something that helps people.
it's about being a solution provider.
Yes.
Exactly.
And you can really see how these two engines work together.
Totally.
Marketing gets their attention, and then sales converts that attention into, fuel for the business.
So that 1-2 punch.
Yeah, and if one of those engines is sputtering,
Right.
the whole plane's going to have trouble.
Give you a bumpy ride.
So let's move on to the wings, the products. This is what lets your business take off.
Yeah.
So Miller talks about this thing called a value ladder,
Right.
which basically means offering different products or services, maybe at different price points, to meet all these different needs that your customers might have.
Yeah, like different tiers of service.
Exactly. And the ultimate goal here isn't just selling something.
Right.
It's about giving your customer a real transformation. Like, they're in one place before they use your product or service, and they're in a much better place after.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what really builds loyalty, right?
Oh, yeah. When you can help somebody truly achieve their goals, they're going to be a customer for life.
Yeah, they're going to tell their friends.
Exactly. They become like little walking advertisements for your business.
Absolutely. Okay, so underneath those wings, we have the body. And that's the overhead and operations of the business.
Nuts and bolts.
Yeah, it's the infrastructure, the stuff that keeps everything running behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So Miller's big on having very clear standard operating procedures, SOPs,
Right.
knowing exactly how things should be done every time, and then delegating effectively. So the right people are handling the right tasks.
And hiring the right people in the first place.
Yes. Getting that team right is so important.
It can make or break you.
And it's all about creating these scalable systems that don't fall apart when you start to grow.
What I really like is his emphasis on simplicity. Like, operations don't need to be super complicated.
No.
In fact, sometimes the simpler the system is, the easier it is to manage and the easier it is to grow.
Yeah.
Think of it like, a well-organized airplane cabin versus one that's all cluttered and chaotic.
Yeah, it's night and day.
The organized one is just going to run more efficiently.
Yeah, 100%. All right, and finally, we reach the fuel tanks.
Okay.
This is cash flow.
The lifeblood of the business.
Absolutely. And Miller doesn't sugarcoat this at all. He says, cash is the lifeblood of your business.
Yeah.
You can be doing everything else right, but if you run out of cash, that's it. You're grounded.
Game over.
So he's all about managing your finances carefully, understanding those numbers, and then planning ahead so you don't get caught off guard.
Yeah, you don't want any surprises when it comes to cash.
No, you do not.
Yeah.
So there you have it, folks.
The small business airplane.
Exactly. Leadership is your cockpit. Marketing and sales are your two engines.
Mm-hmm.
Products are the wings. Operations is the body. And cash flow are those fuel tanks.
It's a great visual.
And like we've been talking about, if any one of these areas is weak, the whole business is going to struggle to really get off the ground.
And based on all this material you shared, that kind of leads to a really important question for our listeners. Thinking about your own business.
Yeah.
What part of your airplane might need a little extra attention right now?
Yeah.
And how could you, focusing on strengthening that one specific area, really give you that boost you need, help you take off and really soar?
Yeah, that's something to think about. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It's been great.
My pleasure.
Until next time.
See you then.